Hello, everybody. This is MikeyyLikesIT here again, doing another Q&A with Evelake Rhyne. Okay, so a lot has happened since the last Q&A. Would you like to fill the community in and anybody that's watching this video about what has transpired?
So essentially, the Kingdom of Doladarren has, for all intents and purposes, gone by the wayside due to some complications with the Queen's real life and her schedule, as well as me not wanting to steal her story and her brainchild away. So we wished her the best of luck and started a new kingdom with a bit of a new story, but the same general vision.
Okay, what's the name of the kingdom?
So the new kingdom's name is the Kingdom of Vornair.
Vornair, where did you get that from?
We made it up, but
you're supposed to have like a cool backstory for it.
So the loose translation for it is in Old Norse. It means defensive honor.
All right, and what kind of history does this kingdom have now?
So the new kingdom storyline is very, very new. Essentially, the way it breaks down is we are currently at the we're currently right before where the Chronicles of Elyria storyline is going to kick off in Kingdoms of Elyria and the Elyria Mud.
Okay.
That's announced. About 30 years prior to that, which is 90 years ago, right? So, or 90 years before the start of the game is when Kingdoms of Elyria and the Elyria Mud start. 30 years earlier than that, our kingdom was established officially. The 20 years leading up to that, we were all essentially different clans, real tribal state, essentially, that came together in order to be able to protect themselves from the large nations that were forming and encroaching upon their land.
Okay, cool. That sounds like a pretty good backstory for it so far, and I bet you guys are going to be working on it hard. And that sounds horrible to say that. You're going to, yeah. I'm just all right. We're going to. No one listened to that part. We're going to continue now, doing other things. So, so I guess, King. I guess we'll start the Q&A. So the first question we have: what makes you qualified to lead? And apparently that was from the forum.
Yeah, so there was a forum post on the COE forums, basically asking that question.
Okay.
So, what makes me qualified? Well, what makes anybody qualified to lead is, essentially having people who believe in them enough to follow. Right? Is realistically what makes somebody qualified to lead. In terms of what would make somebody want to follow me, I don't know. That's probably a better question for our community, considering they just did so.
Yes, very true. I chose to come over here because I've started to grow more of a personal bond with you over the course that we've been talking and communicating, and generally just discussing about any subject, and even just trying to become friends. Yeah, I know everything sounds nasty. It happens. Be quiet. I'm sorry, I was talking to the chat. I broke everything up again. I made this awkward.
So the to fix something there. Other than that, in terms of if they're looking for like hard qualifications or whatnot, I've been a community leader / builder in multiple MMOs over the last 10 years of actual leadership.
Okay.
And then from there, in real life, I'm an information security officer. I've got about, I've got about 80 people under me total in our 20,000 person company. But really, again, I don't. Those are all good metrics, I guess. But realistically, it comes down to, do you have the ability to, vocalize your vision, develop a strategy to deliver upon your vision, and then, communicate that out and supervise to see that it's, seen through. And I have that ability, I believe.
Wonderful. That's a really good answer. I like that. Where do you draw your leadership concepts from?
So my leadership concepts come a lot from my time in the Marine Corps. 5 years in the Marine Corps, active duty, and we're one of the smallest branches of military in the we are the smallest branch of military in the armed forces of the U.S. and we are trained from the get-go to be leaders, right? Small unit leadership and delegation, lead from the front, and adapt and overcome is really what it comes down to. It's where I get a lot of my my background in leadership, and I've applied it to pretty much every community I've ever built and every leadership role I've held and been successful with it. So they must be doing something right.
Very good. If you have a female child heir, will you play her?
I have a female child heir. Will I play her? Well, that would assume that I set the female child as an heir.
Yeah.
Right. And that's definitely a possibility. I've played female characters before, but it really just depends. I'm not looking to make like a patriarchy or a matriarchy whatsoever.
Okay.
I'm looking for those roles to be a bit more equal, right? So
yeah,
king and queen should have a equal power, and then of course the Yarls can choose to split their power with their spouse. That's completely up to them. So on.
Okay, good. Magic, though rare, will come in many forms in the game. What sort of magic are you hoping is included? More importantly, what sort of magic abilities do you wish you could have in the game?
On
a personal note, like fire, but that's because I'm a pyro. I like to say
exists without magic, though.
I know, that's the best part.
So, in terms of magic and whatnot, I'm really looking forward to what they end up deciding to do. I would be very interested in kind of that mind magic, right? Like illusionary, or
like making it appear more troops on the field. That would be pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that would be that'd be really cool to have in game. But yeah, past that, I mean, I'm just looking forward to what they decide to put in from a their world perspective, right?
Definitely.
In terms of what magic I would want to have myself. Again, I'm partial to the illusionary magic. I think that would be really interesting, but I don't think that I'm going to really seek out magic myself.
Okay. That's definitely fair enough. That probably actually ties into the another one. If you could have a talent, what would you have and why?
I had a talent. Underwater basket weaving? No, I'm just kidding.
Perfect. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, if I could have a talent again, I don't have an answer there. I'm much more of a low fantasy type setting person.
Fair, yeah, that's definitely understandable.
Yeah.
All right. What significance does the fox hold to the royal family?
The fox is our sigil, right? So it holds the same significance that anybody else's sigil holds, right? The Balins are bears, right? The Rhynes are foxes. And foxes stand for wisdom. They stand for cunning. And that's what they're there for. I'll have my pet fox Bayfire, and I will I will very much enjoy having him at my side at all times.
Wonderful. I believe you probably already did this. What is your process for the kingdom's lore? I guess maybe that you can expand a little bit on that.
Yeah, my process. Well, so I think that question actually existed from the Dulladeran side of the house when I had the timeline and whatnot.
Oh, okay.
So my process for that was I had an overall story arc that I was planning for, and then I used a timeline generator that I had found to come up with a good, mixture of events to place around that general story arc to give us more of a interesting, less cut and dry history. That's what I was doing there. The kingdom history for this kingdom, like I said, it's much, much younger kingdom. The vast majority of our lore is going to be built during the kingdoms of Elyria and the Elyria mud.
Okay.
So I'm very much looking forward to that. It's essentially we'll be writing our nation's history together, and it'll be a good time. However, all of the clans have the ability at that point to write their backstory to their heart's content, right?
Yeah, because they're all joining with you at that moment. So anything past that is completely up to them.
Right. Exactly.
That's fantastic. Let's see here. Why should I join you and not another kingdom? What makes each of them weak?
So, it's personal preference, right? If you agree with the vision that I'm doing here in the kingdom, right? Is my vision of just creating an environment for players to be able to play the way that they want to play, then stick around, right? That's I'm not here to sell myself any more than that, right?
Yeah.
The other kingdoms have their own quirks and their own merits, right? It's just like the conversation I had with King Zoltra last night in our town square, right? He asked what the difference between our kingdoms was, and I said, pretty much that he's creating an environment where he's limiting the gameplay of his people, right, to keep them in a certain channel, because they're their objective in the game is to, you know, expand, right, from a county to a kingdom.
Yeah.
Right. And because that's their goal, you know, he has to have those channels there, those restrictions there, so that he can guide, you know, his group to that. So it makes sense the way that he's building his kingdom that way.
Mm.
For me, I'm building an environment for players to be able to play the way that they want. So I have to make it much more open, right? And you know, a whole lot, whole lot more customizable from the player perspective. But that's just because our goals are different.
Oh yes. All right, let's see here. This one's quite a lengthy one. I think I want to start limiting the size of these questions. All right. I am sure lots of different crafting families or guilds are going to be fighting over positions to work more directly for the crown. What criteria, if any, would you use to determine which guild or family be put into the more important jobs, like making and maintaining armor for the Royal Guard, or helping supply weapons for you and your heirs?
So that's a good question. I consider it merit based, right? Everything in this kingdom is merit based. So if you are a fine craftsman, right, craftswoman, crafting family, crafting guild, crafting company, right? I mean, it would make sense for, you know, me to go spend my money on, you know, the highest quality of goods if that's what I was looking for, right?
Yeah.
I don't intend on going to the same people for the same things over and over and over again just because that's who I'm used to going to.
Yeah, because over time, a different guild could be able to make better weapons because they've been working harder and they have more people or something.
Right. So, yeah, it's one of those things. It's not like I'm selecting, right? These are going to be my tinkerers and these are going to be my armor smiths and whatnot, right?
Yeah,
it's more like I need armor for the Royal Guard, right? You know, we get an initiative passed for it. At that point, it's for the, you know, my personal guard, so it would be coming out of, you know, like my Jarldom taxes, right? And at that point, I put a contract in with one of the companies who I think would do a good job, you know, crafting that armor, or potentially multiple companies, depending on how quickly I want to get that armor, you know, to my guard, right? And you know, go through the process that way.
Perfect. Any plans for a zoo?
Any plans for a zoo? Do you have plans for a zoo? Right? You know, I mean,
yeah.
it's not the government's job to create a zoo, right? Whatsoever. It could be interesting if one of the players or some of the players want to create that, then by all means do it. I think it could be cool. I think it could attract people to it. I think it could be a good grounds for doing, you know, some exotic breeding and whatnot of animals as well. So, yeah, more power to you.
All right. Will there be cake?
Will there be cake? If you craft cake, sure.
Easy enough. Any plans to deal with famine? Are you going to be the big brother government that will supply food for everyone?
No, that's not our job.
No,
from a government standpoint. Of course, if there's a food shortage somewhere, we may pass an initiative at the government level at that point in order to address that particular situation. But it's not a, you know, it's not one of those standard things, right?
Yeah. Yeah, each county should be able to supply its own. essentially. So if one of is running short, then the other counties in that duchy should be able to try to help them out. It does. I don't believe it would go all the way up to a kingdom initiative kind of thing.
Right.
What do you see? What do you foresee is going to be the profession nobody wants to do, but we will find necessary? Fertilizer picker-upper.
Farming in general, like I don't think there's going to be too many people. The pharaohs are a clear counter to that, but I don't think there's too many people that are going to be too interested in the actual like crop farming. I can see people being interested in like the livestock related farming.
Yeah.
But crop farming, I think, is going to be a bit harder to get people interested in and engaged in. But that's mostly because, well, that's how it is in real life too.
Yeah. Well, the good thing that I have a county in your duchy, because I like to farm as well.
Jarldom, by the way.
Yes, I know. I'm not used to all these new Yarls and Args.
So, and I know that there's a question later on, so let me address that real quick.
Okay.
The Jarl, the social structure and geographical structure that I posted for the kingdom, the new kingdom, is essentially that's how Clan Rhyne views the social structure and geographical structure, right? So from a kingdom perspective, right, that's how the king sees a duke and duchess, right? It's Jarl, right? And a count is a thane, and so on and so forth, right? However, again, because of the way that our story is, which I love, each of the clans has their own cultures, right? So you very much have the ability in your clan chats and in your areas to use whatever social structure you choose, right? And call yourself whatever you choose to call yourself at that level. At the kingdom level, I still want to see it as Jarl and Thane and whatnot, right? Because that's what I'm going to, refer to people as, right? At least initially. But I see this culmination of cultures, or this like us trying to tie together these different cultures from the different Jarldoms, as adding another layer of gameplay from a kingdom perspective in that cultural development area. Some may say cultural warfare, right? Like I want the French culture to win out, so we're gonna go populate the Valois family, right? And we're gonna spread our seed everywhere, so there's more Frenchmen, right? Like that's stuff that actually happened when historically a kingdom was made in this way, and it resulted every single time in a unique culture for that kingdom, which is something I'm very much looking forward to.
Okay. Will there be options for the less serious offenders of the law to do community service to help the people instead of paying hefty fines or spending time in jail?
Yeah, that's a possibility. It's likely not going to be at the kingdom level, though. Like most of those most of those laws are going to be very, very black and white, right, with little gray area. However, that's what the Jarls and the Thanes and the Freyas and Barons are for, right? With their laws, they could get very very granular with those in terms of what their punishment is going to be.
Do you believe a single grain of rice can tip the scale?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a proven fact, considering a single grain of rice does weigh a specific amount. So, I mean, depending on how sensitive the scale is, it's very possible.
On the lines of lore, how many tribes joined the kingdom when it was first formed, and are there any that took longer to join?
That's completely up to those tribes / clans backstories.
Yeah. Any plans for a library?
I'm sure quite a few of our members are planning on having libraries. In terms of a kingdom library, maybe I might commission one at some point if we, as the Yarls of the Round, decide that that's an initiative that we want to pass.
Sounds good. Will we follow a religion similar to the Norse pagan mythos, or choose an in-game one of the 5 they provide?
I will not be requiring a religion of the kingdom. So our high cleric is there to know the religions of our land, right? Know what their customs are, what their beliefs are, and so on and so forth, and ensure that we're able to support them from a kingdom perspective.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to have the religion, again, that's going back into the clans, letting them do what they want.
Yep, exactly.
Do you want the architecture to be more Norse-inspired or Arthurian?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. So my clan, in and of itself, right, is that combination between Norse and Arthurian, right? The Balin clan is a Germanic clan. The Valois are French, right?
Oui, oui.
The Tyrells, I believe, are kind of low fantasy Welsh, I would imagine, based upon the name. So I think that our style will be kind of that, it'll be different based upon the area of the kingdom that you're in and what their culture was. And over time, I think those cultures are going to bleed together to form a full kingdom culture. And at that point, we'll have something that's absolutely unique that you can't really put this is Nordic, this is Arthurian, this is French, this is whatever on. At that point, it'll just be this is Vorn or Vordic.
Okay. Why do we have Yarls of Blank rather than their duchy's name? Jarl of Rhineland, for instance, rather than Jarl of Valor.
So I'm still a Jarl of the Rhinelands, right? Or I am the Jarl of the Rhinelands, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this virtue that they are representing, right? I see it as essentially, when you look at Arthurian lore and the Knights of the Round table, right? Each knight represented a specific virtue, right? And when you add those virtues together, right, that becomes this is what we value as a kingdom, right? And so I think having the Jarl of, virtue, right, whatever virtue, establishes that for our kingdom, right? And it'll change as our Jarls change, right? They're choosing these virtues as, this is what I want to represent, right? Which largely means that it's likely that that's what their Jarldom is going to represent, in the kingdom. That's what's going to be highly valued in their Jarldom, and what they should be held, accountable for by their people, right? In terms of their people judging their merit, right? Is High King Evelake Rhyne, is he valorous, right? He's the Jarl of Valor, right? He should be valorous.
Yeah.
So, that's both of those things. Basically, when I'm recruiting a Jarl, right, and they are interested in joining, or they make the decision to join, I ask them, what, since you have the ability to knight people, or will have the ability to knight people in the game, what is a virtue that somebody can display that will make you, instantly want to knight that person, right? if they are the embodiment of blank, right, they've earned a knightship in your eyes. So that's essentially how I'm asking them to look at it when they're choosing.
Okay. I kind of like that. That's pretty interesting. Our new kingdom expresses the belief in the existence of both good and evil. To what extent will the kingdom follow on this? A few examples like about thieves, assassins, vampires, and other things like that.
Again, we'll have laws and whatnot, right? Like, just because we're a lawful neutral kingdom does not mean that murder is okay, right?
Yeah.
It's not how that works. But yeah, again, there's absolutely nothing wrong with a thieves guild that's there with a thieves guild, period, right? They can definitely do that. I have no problem with that whatsoever. It just comes down to, if you're doing something that breaks the law, you have to understand that there's consequences for that.
Yep, cause and effect.
Yep.
When did you decide that you were going to leave Dolodaern and make a new kingdom, as you seem to have thoroughly planned out the new one?
So, yeah, that's a good question. I had decided that basically I had been making a lot of attempts to try and contact Evelake Rhyne, because of some issues that I had been dealing with on the diplomatic front from times prior to me joining Dolodaern. And she wasn't available. I didn't know why she wasn't available at the time. However, it became clear to me that the partnership wasn't going to work out if we couldn't communicate. And, I was essentially having to drag my feet on things, right?
Yeah.
So essentially, I gave myself an ultimatum date, the weekend before last, that if we go another week without any communication, then, I'm going to have to create a new kingdom and do that. I did not actually start putting ideas for this kingdom, like forming any ideas on this kingdom, until 6:00 p.m. the night before I made the announcement that I was creating my own kingdom. And then I was up until 6 a.m. Changing documents over, creating the Discord, writing, or coming up with the lore and everything else, right? And then I put my final touches on it and whatnot once I woke up on Monday, and made the announcement Monday evening. The reason why it looks like I've put so much thought into the kingdom is because realistically, I just took everything that I was doing and that I had built in Dole, right, from a mechanical standpoint, right? So like the Ducal Council system still exists. It's just the Yarls of the Round now. It's relabeled, right? The Master system still exists. It's just the High King's Council now. It's like it's the same thoughts that I had previously. It's just got a different face on it, and follows a new story that is actually my own.
Which I like that as well, that you didn't want to take Dolodaern away, and it allows the queen, if she chooses to be to come back, that she's able to continue on with that as well.
She was appreciative of that as well in our conversation.
All right, let's see. Okay, I guess this next question, I'll make it a little more broader. Will our peace treaties to any of the other kingdoms be extended to our new one now, Varnair, or it is basically like more of a reset, I guess, is what I want to wonder about.
So it's a reset. We have to reach back out to those kingdoms and create those pacts and alliances again.
Yeah.
That's just nature of the beast.
Yeah, it's a new kingdom, so we're just showing up saying, "Hey, everybody." Have plans been made to ensure economic growth? How will you, the kingdom as a whole, make sure that it keeps running? Have laws and rules been discussed regarding this?
So, yes and no. The economic piece should largely be driven by the private sector of the kingdom. The government sector, public sector, should be providing initiatives and whatnot to kind of encourage economic growth, right? However, realistically, it's the private sector who is really responsible for economic growth in the kingdom. We have put some theory crafting together in discussions in relation to essentially ensuring that the smaller businesses, like what are we going to do in order to ensure that smaller businesses in these smaller guilds can retain the ability to play the way that they want to play without getting pushed out of priced out of their markets by larger corporate entities, right? So we're swinging stuff around as far as that goes, but it really comes down to we need more information on the systems.
And that's understandable. Have plans been made to ensure the continued safety of the citizens?
Yep. So that's what our military is for. Both the high level kingdom level military, as well as the Jarldom's individual militaries, right? That's what they're there for, is protection of the citizens, defense of our lands, so on and so forth. We have quite a few people who are interested in, well, not only interested, but are active in our military. So that's going along quite nicely. We don't get to see much of it in our normal Kingdom Discord. The military channel kind of is tucked away on its own. But I'll definitely encourage that information to get shared out on the forums so people can see our military structure and our plans there without giving away too much detail that could potentially get leaked to other kingdoms, thus providing a disadvantage, right?
Yeah. All right, so the next 4 questions are all over the same subject. Would you allow independent vassal states?
Independent vassal states. Independent vassal states. I don't think it comes down to a question of would I allow it personally. It comes down to will game mechanics allow it, and it comes down to does that particular person, right, like that count, that baron, or whatever level that independent vassal state is trying to operate at, right? If they're going to allow that to happen, right? Or if these independent vassals are planning on taking a county or building a hamlet, village, whatever they're trying to build, and just running it that way, right? There's absolutely no problem with that, right? So long as they're running within the confines of the laws above them, right? So yes, I would allow that.
Okay. Let's see. How will you treat these people? Would you remove them or force them to join your kingdom and obey your laws? Would you respect their self-proclaimed neutrality in times of war? Would you allow them to build embassies and trading houses in your larger cities?
So that's okay. I guess I might be misunderstanding what an independent vassal state is. I assume that that's essentially where the vassals have taken the decision making process for that particular section, right? Town, county, whatever, right? And created their own way of being able to run that from a government perspective, right? So the only way that's going to work, right, is if they adhere to the kingdom's laws or the laws above them, right? If they're a county, they have to adhere to that yarldom law and the kingdom law, right?
Yeah, and it looks like this. Sorry, it looks like this question is more about neutral communities as well. So, like for trading and like simple living. So I'm guessing more necessarily like guilds and stuff.
Yeah. So guilds run. They have to adhere to the law of the land.
Yes.
Right. If they don't adhere to the law of the land, then there's consequences. There's always consequences, right?
All right. Assume a trade embargo is in place. Would you allow your duchies or counties to break that rule if they trade for economic progress, or to provide in human needs if they did so in the name of their own holdings instead of the larger kingdom?
So if I've put in an embargo on trade with another nation, is it all right for one of the lower groups to break that embargo? When we're discussing laws, right?
Mm-hmm.
An embargo is technically a law at that point. So what do you think? from that actual the actual official state side, right? The public sector side, right? Yes, if they break that law, they broke that law. That's not going to be allowed. Private sector is a completely different story, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it's a private company who's doing trade with another kingdom, or they have their own holdings in another kingdom, so they're doing moving materials back and forth, so on and so forth, that's a completely different story, right? That's perfectly acceptable in my eyes, right? Nobody tells Microsoft that you can't trade with a country anymore, right? Because Microsoft has zero reason to listen.
Yeah. All right. Next question. Have plans been made to combat wear and tear of amenities like public buildings, resources, and roads?
Not yet, because we're waiting on more information on game mechanics.
That's a simple enough answer. Will you engage in planning to strategically place baronies, or will you allow players to whimsically choose which areas are fortified and which are not?
Sorry. Say again?
I am not going to read a question again, Mr. King.
Which one are you on?
Now I have to go look at it. Number 32.
Will I engage in planning to strategically place baronies, or will I allow players to whimsically choose which areas are fortified and which are not? So that the placement of baronies should be done via the military, via whether it's the kingdom level military or the Jarl level military, right? Those marshals and constables and whatnot and admirals should be the ones who are essentially, strategically planning where those baronies are going to reside or should reside based upon, there is a huge advantage in having, these strongholds and forts and whatnot placed in, strategically located positions with terrain that would be advantageous to base militant forces out of, right? So whimsically probably isn't going to work there, but it'll be something that should be worked out between the marshals, the admirals, the constables, and those barons.
Well, yeah, and also everything is going to be first started. There'll be little startup ones, and then we can adjust later after that.
Right.
How different will the military structure be than it was in DA? Well, yeah, go ahead.
So the military structure is, so again, my mesh is Viking and Arthurian, right? So the social structure is largely Norse or Nordic, right?
Mm-hmm.
The military structure is largely Arthurian, right? Which I did for a reason, because Vikings and that Nordic culture, are known for being warmongering, right? If the first thing that we started changing as a kingdom was our military, right, to be more aligned with that of like an Arthurian type system, right? It kind of alleviates that.
Yeah, that's perfect. What's with all the wiggles?
I have no idea where all the wiggles came from. I have nothing against it. All right. I mean, people can emote as they please. I've wiggled a few times myself.
Yeah, there's been a cat that's been constantly perusing the forums that wiggles a lot.
Yep. So I have nothing against it personally. Some other people might have something against it. Might throw and chuck a throwing knife at somebody who's wiggling, but wiggle at your own risk, people.
How do you feel the transition from Dolodarin went?
Not as expected. I did not expect Lucy to step down from her role in Dolodarin whatsoever. It was largely, naive of me. But I honestly thought that I was starting this new kingdom, and that realistically the only people who were going to follow was the Balins and the Valois. So I guess I'm very humbled that it went the way that it did, and happy because I loved our community, and it really just came down to I just couldn't do what I needed to be able to do because of the partnership, and I didn't want to steal that story from its rightful owner.
Yeah.
So I think it'll all work out for the best in the end, and I think the transition has largely been very very grateful or graceful, at least from my perspective.
I guess you kind of already touched on this subject. Can the nobles opt out on the new Norse system and use traditional Baron, Count, Duke titles?
Yes. So in their clans, yes, right. Clans control their culture, right?
Okay.
At least at the beginning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like how if somebody wants to create an Egyptian clan, you go right on ahead, right? It doesn't. It really doesn't matter to me. You guys call yourselves what you want at that level. It's just at the kingdom level. It's one of those like this is what that clan would have seen these roles as. So that's what they're called at that level from a continuity and a a unity type standpoint. So expect if you come to the capital, I'm going to call you Jarl or Thane. But also expect that if I come to your area, I will call you by the titles in which you've set for yourself in your culture.
All right, and the very last question: who do you see as a honest threat to the kingdom, and what are you prepared to do to stem that threat?
Currently, the biggest threat that I see to the kingdom, it's not even to the kingdom, it's to the entirety of Chronicles of Elyria, and I'm not alone in my thinking on it, but is those griefer nations, right? So like Laughing Coffin and the Goon Squad, right? I see them as being the biggest threat to the game in general, right? Because if they're allowed to essentially set their roots in to the server, they've been known to ruin games, right? That's their plan. That's always what their plan is. That's what they take enjoyment out of, is just ruining the game for people. So in terms of what I'll do to stop that, everything I has the power to do realistically. Yeah, I mean that's all I can really say there.
All right, it looks like someone snuck in one more question. How many confirmed members are there in the kingdom? Is there an estimate proportion of DA members who joined? It's 39 at the very end, or 38. And you were telling me the numbers a little bit earlier, and
did I lose comm with somebody?
Can you? Oh, I forgot to press my button.
Gotcha.
I'm stupid.
You want to hit this last question up real quick, and then we'll...
Yeah, that's what I said. I had a really good intro. I'm going to have to cut that part out. Okay, so what I said was somebody asked one more question. How many confirmed members are there in the kingdom, and is there an estimated proportion of DA members who have joined?
So far, to my knowledge, it's all been DA members who have joined the kingdom. And I believe we're currently sitting at about 75 members.
Yeah, and I feel like there'll be more to come this way once they actually get it online again.
Right. Everything. Yeah, there was quite a few inactive people.
Yeah, so it's pretty good to try to clean house that way as well. All right, it looks like we still have some extra time, about 4 minutes. If anybody want to ask a question in chat real quick, you guys can. Or King, if you want to say some final words to the community, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think I'll just take the last 4 minutes as an opportunity to, just in closing remark. We'll get the questions that you're asking now put into the next Q&A. And if you can't wait that long, just, again, you guys know me at this point. Send me questions. I'm going to answer them. But yeah, closing remark is essentially, again, nothing about our vision realistically has changed in terms of what we want to be in the community. We've had a bit of a facelift in terms of what the kingdom looks like. from an aesthetic point of view, but the vision is still the same. And I'm looking forward to moving forward that way. At this point, I get asked a lot, what can people do now that's going to be of most use to the kingdom? My answer to that is and always will be, at least for the foreseeable future, create the smaller communities, right? Create the guilds, create the organizations that you want to be able to play the way that you want to play, so that the other players, the other 9,000 subscribers out there who haven't chosen a kingdom yet, have something in the Kingdom of Vornair that enables them to play what they want to play, right? Currently, if a tinkerer wanted to join Vornair, right? Well, why would they, right? There's not a tinkerer's guild in Vornair. There's not a there's not a business that needs tinkerers and is actively looking for tinkerers, right? So we have to create those environments for players to want to join us, right? Recruiting for nobility, that's easy, right? You just need a stable a stable kingdom, right? They just need that structure and the they just need that structure, and they're going to come flocking in order to protect their investments, is really what it comes down to, right? That's not what we necessarily need right now. What we need right now is the players, right? We need to fill that out. We need to fill out the guilds, fill out the organizations and whatnot, and get that out there, right? The more that we have to be able to offer to players, the more interested they're going to be in joining. So I guess that would be my final thought there. And again, if anybody needs anything at any time, feel free to PM me, and I'm going to get back to you as quickly as I can.
Yeah, just don't expect when you're on voice with him to actually pay attention to you, because he's doing a lot of DMs. Just my personal opinion. Anyways, with that, thanks again for the Q&A session, and I'm glad that everybody was here listening, and we'll talk to you guys next time.